The unseen threat, hook and suspense. Emerges Empire. On a distant planet far from Earth, the small human colony of Veridum flourished in peaceful harmony. The people lived simple lives, working the land and trading among themselves. They had little knowledge of the dangers that lay beyond their world. It was a quiet place, untouched by war or conflict. But that peace was about to be shattered in the most terrifying way. The skies above Veridum had been calm for weeks. The sun bathed the land in warmth, and the colony's citizens went about their daily routines, oblivious to the threat creeping toward them. They knew little of the vast universe outside, or the ancient warlords and conquerors that roamed the stars. But they were about to face an enemy unlike anything they had ever imagined. Far from the planet, in the cold depths of space, a massive alien fleet gathered. Led by an alien general known as Krathus, the fleet consisted of hundreds of warships, each more powerful than anything humanity had ever seen. The empire that Krathus served was one of the most fearsome in the galaxy, known for its ruthless conquests. The general himself had a reputation for never losing a battle, and his cold, calculating nature made him one of the most feared leaders in the universe. Krathus watched the human colony on his holographic display. His dark, sharp eyes studied the tiny world with contempt. To him, Veridum was nothing more than an insignificant speck in the vast expanse of space. He believed that conquering this peaceful world would be a simple task. The humans were weak, unprepared for the brutal forces of the Empire. They had no advanced technology, no weapons capable of defending themselves against his mighty fleet. It would be over quickly, he thought. He would crush them without mercy and add another planet to the Empire's ever-growing list of conquered worlds. But even the most seasoned warlords could be blind to the power of the unknown. Krathus underestimated one thing: the strength of humanity's spirit. The fleet silently drifted through space, approaching Veridum. Krathus's ships were equipped with advanced cloaking technology, and they moved undetected, hidden from the watchful eyes of the humans below. No warning, no sign of impending doom, just the quiet hum of alien engines growing ever closer to the unsuspecting colony. On the ground, the people of Veridum went about their business. The marketplace was bustling with activity, as humans traded goods and exchanged stories of their daily lives. Children played in the streets, laughing and running through the fields, while the elders gathered under the shade of trees to share wisdom. The atmosphere was one of peace, the kind that could only be found in a world untouched by war. No one saw the signs, no one felt the unease that hung in the air like a heavy fog. The colony's defense systems were basic, designed to protect them from the occasional wild animal or small-scale intruder, but not from an empire's fleet. Veridum had no idea that it was being watched by an enemy that had already decided its fate. Krathus, as always, showed no mercy. He had no use for weakness. He viewed the people of Veridum as little more than pests to be wiped out. The general issued the order. The invasion would begin at dawn. As the alien fleet descended upon the planet, Krathus's forces readied themselves for the first strike. Alien soldiers, towering and clad in dark armor, prepared to land on Veridum's surface. The sheer size of the alien ships blocked out the stars above as they descended through the atmosphere, their enormous shadows sweeping across the land. It was then that the first signs of danger reached the humans of Veridum. A sudden rumble in the earth shook the ground, and a strange hum filled the air. The colony's primitive sensors picked up unusual readings, but by the time the alarms went off, it was already too late. The ships had entered the atmosphere undetected, and the attack was underway. The invasion force landed with terrifying precision. Alien warriors spilled out of their ships, marching onto the peaceful world with the precision of an unstoppable army. The humans scattered in fear, unsure of what was happening. The people of Veridum had never faced an enemy like this before. They had no idea what these creatures wanted, but they knew one thing: the battle for survival had just begun. As the first wave of alien soldiers began their assault, Krathus stood aboard his flagship, watching the destruction unfold. He felt no joy, No excitement, only the cold satisfaction of a plan coming to fruition. To him, the humans were nothing more than an obstacle in the way of his conquest. He did not know that this tiny, peaceful world would be the place where everything would change. The fate of the empire and its general would soon be decided by a force they could never have imagined. The humans had no army, no trained soldiers, and no advanced weapons. They were outmatched in every way. But what Kratos did not know, what he could not possibly understand, was that the humans had something far more powerful than weapons. They had something that could not be measured by technology, something that could not be defeated by might alone. They had courage. And that courage would be tested in ways they never could have predicted. The humans of Veridum were about to face an enemy that would push them to their limits and beyond. They had no choice but to fight, and they would fight like they had nothing to lose. The invasion had begun, but the story of humanity's resilience was only just starting to unfold. The arrival of the invaders. The first wave of alien ships descended upon Veridum, massive and terrifying in their presence. The sky darkened as the ships blocked out the sun, casting long shadows across the land. The people of Veridum, still shaken from the rumble of the ground, looked up in confusion. The peaceful world they had known was suddenly under attack, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. The invasion was swift and ruthless. The alien soldiers, armed with advanced energy weapons, flooded into the colony. They marched with mechanical precision, their armor gleaming under the strange light of the planet's twin suns. The humans had no defense against such a force. Their weapons were crude in comparison, and the colony's security systems, built for basic protection, were no match for the highly advanced technology of the alien fleet. As the alien soldiers stormed the streets, panic spread through the human population. People fled in all directions, desperate to escape the overwhelming force. Buildings were torn apart by the alien weapons, and fires began to spread through the city as the invaders made their way toward the center of the colony. The sounds of chaos filled the air. The screams of the frightened, the crackle of laser blasts, the heavy thud of alien boots on the ground. Kratos, aboard his flagship, watched the devastation unfold with cold indifference. He issued orders to continue the assault, confident that the humans would be crushed in a matter of hours. Their resistance was nothing more than a fleeting reaction. He had seen it all before. Planets like Veridum, peaceful and unprepared, crumbling under the might of the Empire. In the heart of the colony, a group of humans had gathered at the central square, led by a man named Captain Eli Ross. Eli was not a soldier by trade. He was a simple farmer, one of the many civilians caught in the attack. But when the invasion began, he couldn't stand by and watch his people suffer. He quickly gathered a group of fellow survivors, armed only with tools and whatever makeshift weapons they could find. They had no training, no experience in battle, but they had one thing that the aliens didn't expect: the will to survive. As the alien soldiers advanced through the streets, Eli and his group set up a makeshift defense in the central square. They took cover behind the remains of broken buildings and used whatever resources they could find to create traps. The humans knew the terrain better than the invaders ever could. It was their home, and they were willing to fight to protect it. The aliens, expecting little more than a quick and easy victory, were caught off guard when the first ambush took place. One of the alien soldiers, marching through the street, suddenly found himself caught in a net of heavy cables that had been strung between two buildings. The trap caused the soldier to fall to the ground with a loud crash, giving the humans a brief moment to strike. Eli's group, using the confusion to their advantage, opened fire with improvised weapons. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make the aliens hesitate. The humans had thrown themselves into the fight with wild, desperate determination. They weren't soldiers, but they fought with a passion that the alien invaders had never encountered. Kratos watched the scene unfold with growing annoyance. He had expected the humans to cower, to run in fear. Instead, they were fighting back, fighting like they had nothing to lose. He had never encountered a species that fought so fiercely, in the face of certain defeat. He ordered his troops to advance even more aggressively, thinking that the human resistance would be crushed in a matter of minutes. But as the battle raged on, something began to unsettle him. The humans didn't stop. They kept coming, no matter how many were cut down. They were relentless. As the alien forces moved through the streets, they began to encounter pockets of resistance at every turn. Humans fought from rooftops, in alleyways, and from behind broken walls. Some were armed with nothing more than crude tools, others with weapons they had scavenged from the wreckage. But it didn't matter. The humans were everywhere, and they fought with an intensity that confused the invaders. Eli and his group managed to take out a few of the alien soldiers, but it came at a cost. The aliens' weapons were far more powerful, and they didn't hesitate to strike back. It wasn't long before the humans were forced to retreat, but they did so with a renewed sense of determination. They had learned one crucial thing: they could fight. They could win. Kratos, still watching from his flagship, was beginning to feel a sense of unease. This wasn't what he had expected. The humans weren't giving up. They were still standing, still fighting. And in that moment, Kratos realized something he hadn't anticipated. The humans had a resilience, a spirit that he had underestimated. It would not be so easy to crush them. In fact, it might be a fight to the death. He clenched his fists, a rare feeling of frustration creeping into his cold demeanor. This was supposed to be an easy conquest. Now, it seemed, he had a real challenge on his hands. And for the first time in his long career, Kratos began to doubt if victory was as certain as he had once believed. The humans had nothing to lose, and that made them dangerous. The unexpected resistance. The invaders' assault on Veridum continued with terrifying force. But the humans, despite being untrained and under-equipped, refused to back down. Every street, every alley, and every corner of the colony became a battlefield. What started as a desperate effort to survive was slowly becoming an unexpected resistance. The invaders were caught off guard by the humans' determination to fight. Captain Eli Ross, though not a soldier, had quickly emerged as the leader of the human resistance. His calm demeanor in the face of overwhelming odds inspired others to rally behind him. More civilians joined his cause, bringing whatever they could: makeshift weapons, home defense tools, and even their knowledge of the land. Eli's leadership became a beacon of hope in the chaos, uniting the people in ways Kratos never thought possible. One by one, the humans ambushed alien patrols, striking swiftly and retreating into the shadows before the invaders could regroup. They used their intimate knowledge of the land to set traps, luring the aliens into narrow streets where they could strike with surprise. The alien forces, though superior in technology, were unprepared for this kind of guerrilla warfare. Every attack from the humans was like a sting, a quick and painful reminder that they were not going to go down easily. Kratos had believed that the humans would surrender, but instead they fought with the ferocity of cornered animals. They were not soldiers, but they were survivors, and that made them unpredictable. As Kratos watched the humans' resistance, he began to see something he hadn't expected. The humans weren't afraid to die. They had nothing to lose. The general ordered his forces to tighten their grip on the colony. But as much as he pushed forward, the humans pushed back. They fought for their homes, for their families, and for their very survival. In the heart of the resistance, Eli's group grew bolder with every small victory. They fought alongside one another, no matter the cost, and for the first time since the invasion began, it seemed that the tide might be turning. As the days passed, more human fighters emerged. What was once a small group of survivors had become a full-fledged resistance, coordinating attacks from different sectors of the colony. The aliens were beginning to feel the weight of the humans' resilience. What had initially been thought of as a minor inconvenience had become a serious problem. In one of the more daring attacks, Eli's group successfully ambushed a transport convoy carrying alien supplies. The humans managed to steal weapons and armor from the wreckage, further leveling the playing field. With these new resources, they began to fight even more fiercely, launching coordinated strikes on alien positions and forcing the invaders to reconsider their tactics. Kratos was growing frustrated. The humans refused to bend, and their attacks were becoming increasingly effective. What had started as a mission of conquest now felt more like a siege. The general sent more forces to the ground, determined to crush the resistance once and for all. But the humans continued to surprise him. One night, Eli and his group launched an attack on a critical alien communication relay. It was a risky mission, but they knew it was their best chance to disrupt the invaders' coordination. The operation was a success, and for the first time in the invasion, the aliens were thrown into disarray. The loss of communication sent shockwaves through the alien forces, and they struggled to reorganize. As Kratos watched his plans unravel, he couldn't help but acknowledge the growing respect he had for the humans. Their ability to adapt, to learn, and to fight with such fierce resolve was unlike anything he had encountered. He had underestimated them, and now it was clear that the humans were not going to give up. They were willing to do whatever it took to drive the aliens off their world. With each passing day, the humans grew stronger. The resistance began to organize more efficiently, and their small victories started to accumulate. Kratos had never faced such a relentless enemy. The general's frustration began to turn into doubt. How was it possible that these simple, untrained humans could be so difficult to defeat? What made them so resilient? As the battle raged on, it became more and more apparent to Kratos that this was no longer a simple conquest. The humans were fighting with everything they had, and the war was far from over. The general, once so sure of his victory, began to realize that the outcome of this battle might not be as certain as he had believed. The humans had proven one thing: they would never give up. And that was something the alien invaders had yet to fully comprehend. The humans' unstoppable spirit. The days turned into weeks, and the invasion of Veridum continued to rage across the planet. The once peaceful colony had been transformed into a war zone, with crumbling buildings, burned fields, and a sky filled with the smoke of battle. Yet, amid the destruction, something incredible was happening. The humans were growing stronger. They were fighting not just to survive, but to protect their way of life, their homes, and their future. Eli Ross and his group had become symbols of hope for the rest of the colony. His leadership was calm and strategic, and his unwavering determination inspired others to join the cause. What had begun as a handful of fighters had grown into a full-blown resistance movement. The humans had discovered a strength within themselves that they never knew they had, and with every passing day, their courage seemed to multiply. The alien forces, once so confident in their overwhelming superiority, were now starting to feel the weight of the human resistance. The relentless guerrilla tactics, the surprise ambushes, and the sudden strikes on key alien positions were taking their toll. The aliens had underestimated the humans' will to fight, and it was beginning to show. Kratos, the cold and calculating general, paced nervously aboard his flagship. He had never imagined that a species so primitive could be so dangerous. The humans, despite being untrained and outmatched in technology, fought with a ferocity that Kratos could not explain. His soldiers, seasoned warriors from across the galaxy, were being picked off one by one, trapped in the maze of human tactics. The general's frustration grew with every passing day. On the ground, Eli's group launched another daring strike. This time, they targeted an alien supply depot located deep within enemy lines. The mission was perilous, but the humans had grown more confident in their ability to carry out such raids. Eli and his team infiltrated the heavily guarded depot, moving swiftly through the shadows, striking when least expected. They managed to destroy vital alien supplies, crippling the enemy's ability to continue their offensive. The victory sent shockwaves through the alien forces. The humans weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting back, and they were winning. Each victory, no matter how small, added fuel to the fire of the human resistance. The people of Veridum had stopped fleeing and started to fight, and the aliens were beginning to realize that they were facing an enemy that could not be easily defeated. Kratos watched as his forces struggled to regain control of the situation. He had underestimated the human spirit, and now he was paying the price. His frustration turned into anger as reports of human victories continued to pour in. It seemed that the more he pushed, the more the humans resisted. They had become an unrelenting force, refusing to submit to the might of the Empire. For the first time in his life, Kratos felt the sting of doubt. He had conquered countless worlds with ease, crushing entire civilizations without mercy. But these humans were different. They fought with a determination he had never seen before, and it made them unpredictable. He couldn't anticipate their next move, and that made them dangerous. In the heart of the resistance, Eli stood before his fellow fighters, his eyes burning with resolve. "We are not just fighting for our survival," he said, his voice firm. "We are fighting for our future. This is our home, and we will not let them take it from us. We will keep fighting, no matter the cost." The humans had come to understand that there was no turning back. They had nothing to lose, and that made them unstoppable. With every victory, they gained more confidence, more strength. The aliens' superior technology and numbers no longer seemed like an advantage. The humans were using their minds, their resourcefulness, and their unwavering will to fight back against a seemingly unbeatable enemy. As the resistance continued to grow, the alien forces began to falter. The human fighters' courage and persistence began to wear down the invaders, and Kratos could feel his control over the situation slipping. The general, once so certain of his victory, now found himself facing a force that he could not easily crush. The humans had shown that they would not be broken, no matter how overwhelming the odds. Their spirit, their unity, and their unyielding determination were far stronger than the aliens had ever imagined. And Kratos, for the first time in his career, was left to question whether the invasion of Veridum could ever succeed. A key victory. The tide of the battle had turned. The humans of Veridum, led by Eli Ross and their growing resistance movement, had achieved a string of small but significant victories. They had disrupted the alien supply chains, ambushed patrols, and fought in ways that no one, least of all Kratos, could have anticipated. The alien forces were no longer marching through the colony with the confidence they once had. Instead, they were being forced to retreat, regroup, and rethink their strategy. But the biggest challenge lay ahead, a bold move that could either break the humans' resistance or solidify it as an unstoppable force. Eli knew that the key to defeating the invaders once and for all lay in taking down a vital alien communications relay that was hidden deep within enemy territory. If the humans could disrupt the aliens' ability to communicate and coordinate, it could shatter the alien forces' morale and cripple their ability to mount an effective offensive. It was a dangerous plan, one that would require careful precision and timing. The relay was located in an alien stronghold, surrounded by heavily armed forces and protected by advanced weaponry. But Eli knew they had no choice. If they didn't strike now, the aliens would regroup and come back even stronger. With a small but determined team, Eli prepared for the mission. They were armed with a mix of stolen alien weapons and homemade explosives. Despite the odds, there was no fear in their eyes, only the burning desire to protect their home. They knew the stakes were high, and they were ready to risk everything for their planet. As they moved into the heart of enemy territory, under the cover of darkness, the tension was palpable. Every step they took felt like it might be their last. But the humans had learned something over the past weeks. Fear no longer held them back. They had become more than just survivors. They had become warriors, and their will to fight had never been stronger. They reached the alien stronghold undetected, using the cover of night to move closer to the communication relay. The base was heavily guarded, but the humans had grown skilled at avoiding detection. The team split up, each taking a different route to infiltrate the stronghold. Eli led the way, keeping his eyes on the target and his mind focused on the task at hand. Once inside the perimeter, the humans quickly planted their explosives on the communication towers, silently making their way to the heart of the relay. They knew that if they could destroy this critical link, the alien forces would be blind, unable to communicate with each other, and most importantly, unable to coordinate their attacks on the resistance. Just as they were about to set the final charges, an alien patrol rounded the corner. The humans froze, their hearts pounding in their chests. The alien soldiers, unaware of the human presence, walked past, just inches from the group. It was a close call, but the humans held their breath and remained still, praying that the aliens wouldn't notice them. Once the patrol was gone, the team quickly finished setting the explosives. They had done it. They had struck a blow to the heart of the alien invasion. The humans retreated as quickly as they had come, moving through the dark streets with stealth and speed. The tension was unbearable as they made their way back to their base, knowing that at any moment the aliens could realize what had happened and launch a counterattack. But they made it back undetected, and with just minutes to spare, they set the final countdown on the explosives. A deafening explosion shook the ground as the communication relay was destroyed in a massive fireball. The shockwave rippled across the alien forces, who had relied on the relay to keep their operations coordinated. Without it, the invaders were thrown into chaos. The once unified alien forces were suddenly fractured, unable to communicate or work together effectively. On Krathus's flagship, the general watched the explosion with a mixture of disbelief and growing rage. The communication relay was the lifeline of his entire operation. Without it, his forces were left disorganized, vulnerable, and unable to launch any further coordinated attacks. The human resistance had dealt a decisive blow, and Krathus knew that he had underestimated them once again. As reports of confusion and disorder began to flood in from the ground, Krathus felt his grip on the situation slip. His fleet, once poised for total domination, was now in disarray. The humans had done the impossible. They had struck where it hurt the most. Eli and his team celebrated briefly, but they knew that this victory was only the beginning. The humans had proven they could deal a devastating blow to the alien forces, but they also knew that Krathus wouldn't give up so easily. The battle was far from over, and the war for Veridum had only just entered its most crucial phase. But for now, the humans savored the victory. They had disrupted the alien invasion in a way that would be felt throughout the galaxy. And as they looked to the future, one thing was clear. They would not surrender. The humans of Veridum had nothing to lose, and they would fight with everything they had to protect their world. Krathus was not yet defeated, but for the first time since the invasion began, he could feel the taste of failure on the wind. The general's doubt. The destruction of the communication relay was a turning point in the war for Veridum. As the aliens scrambled to regain control, the humans of the colony seized the opportunity to launch even bolder strikes. But while the human resistance grew bolder and more confident, Krathus, the alien general, found himself facing a challenge he had never imagined: doubt. In the days following the destruction of the communication relay, the alien forces on Veridum were in disarray. The once coordinated invasion was now fractured, with alien squads operating independently, unable to synchronize their attacks. The invaders had suffered multiple setbacks, and Krathus could no longer ignore the growing problem. The humans had dealt a significant blow to his plans, and their relentless resistance had forced him to reevaluate his assumptions about their strength. On his flagship, Krathus paced restlessly, his mind racing. He had conquered dozens of worlds, each one more powerful than the last. Yet none of those worlds had fought back with the ferocity and resolve that the humans of Veridum had shown. The humans had something that he hadn't counted on: a burning drive to protect their home. They didn't just fight to survive. They fought to win. Krathus had believed that his superior technology and overwhelming numbers would ensure a quick victory. But instead, he found himself in a protracted conflict, one that threatened to bleed his forces dry. Every new report from the front lines seemed to tell the same story. The humans were not giving up. They were adapting, learning and countering every move the aliens made. The general had underestimated their resilience, and now he was paying the price. He stood on the bridge of his ship, staring out at the planet below. Veridum was a beautiful world, but it was proving to be a far greater challenge than he had ever expected. His soldiers, though powerful and well-trained, were beginning to show signs of fatigue. Many had fallen in the numerous skirmishes, and the alien leadership was starting to question the wisdom of the invasion. They had underestimated the humans, and now they were stuck in a war that wasn't going according to plan. Kratos clenched his fists, the frustration growing inside him. He had always prided himself on his ability to read his enemies, to crush them with precision and efficiency. But with the humans, it was different. They were unpredictable. They were willing to fight with everything they had, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. This wasn't just about defeating an enemy. It was about breaking their spirit. But the humans had something that even Kratos couldn't destroy: an unyielding will to survive. On the ground, Eli Ross and his group continued to carry out guerrilla strikes against the alien invaders. The destruction of the communication relay had shifted the momentum in their favor, and they used every opportunity to strike back. Eli could feel the change in the air. The humans were no longer just defending. They were on the offensive. They had a sense of purpose now, a belief that they could actually win this war. Eli knew that the battle for Veridum was far from over. The aliens were regrouping, and it wouldn't be long before they launched another wave of attacks. But for the first time, he felt a sense of confidence. The humans had faced impossible odds and had not only survived, but had begun to turn the tide. There was no turning back now. The people of Veridum had found their strength, and they would not be driven from their home. As the resistance continued to grow stronger, Kratos began to realize that his victory was no longer assured. The humans had proven that they could adapt to his tactics, and they had forced him to fight a war that was unlike any he had fought before. The more he learned about them, the more he realized that the humans' greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their indomitable spirit. In a rare moment of reflection, Kratos questioned everything he had believed about the war. He had always assumed that conquest was inevitable, that all species would eventually fall to the might of the Empire. But these humans, these primitive beings, had defied his every expectation. They had shown him something he hadn't accounted for: the power of hope. For the first time, Kratos doubted his certainty. The humans had not only survived, but had started to win. And the more he thought about it, the more he realized that if the humans were truly willing to fight like they had nothing to lose, they might just succeed in driving the invaders off their planet. Kratos stood in silence, looking out over the battlefield below. His once clear path to victory was now clouded with uncertainty. The humans had changed the rules of the game, and he wasn't sure how to play by their rules. As the war raged on, one thing became clear: the fight for Veridum was no longer just a battle for a planet. It was a battle for something much deeper, something that Kratos was only beginning to understand. The humans' will to survive, their refusal to yield, had shaken the foundations of the Empire itself. And for the first time, Kratos realized that victory was not guaranteed. The final stand, the battle for Veridum, had reached its most intense stage. The humans, led by Eli Ross, had defied all expectations, pushing the alien invaders to their breaking point. Yet, the war was far from over. Kratos, though shaken by the unexpected resilience of the humans, remained determined to bring the colony to its knees. His fleet was regrouping, preparing for one final push to crush the resistance and complete their conquest of Veridum. The human resistance knew that the coming days would be their most dangerous yet. The alien forces were regrouping, stronger than ever, and Kratos was preparing for a full-scale assault on the remaining pockets of human fighters. Eli and his team had no illusions about what was to come. The odds were against them, but they had fought too hard and sacrificed too much to give up now. They would make their final stand, no matter the cost. With the aliens closing in, the human resistance assembled one last time. Eli stood at the front of the group, his face grim but resolute. He addressed his comrades with the same fiery determination that had guided them from the very beginning. "We've come this far," Eli said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "We've fought for our homes, for our families, and for our future. Now it's time to finish this. We won't let them take what we've built. We fight because we have everything to fight for. And we will never stop, no matter what." The human forces, once a scattered group of survivors, had become a united, unstoppable force. They had learned the art of resistance, of striking when least expected, of using their knowledge of the land to their advantage. They weren't just fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting for their right to exist, to continue living on their planet, and they would stop at nothing to protect their world. The final battle began at dawn. The alien fleet descended upon Veridum with all the might of the Empire, a terrifying sight that blocked out the sun. Alien warships filled the sky, and the ground shook as the invaders prepared to bombard the human strongholds with unrelenting firepower. It seemed like an unstoppable force, but the humans were ready. Eli's team had spent days preparing for this moment, setting traps and fortifying their positions. They had a plan, one that relied on their knowledge of the terrain, and the one advantage they had over the aliens: their determination. The humans knew this would be their last chance to drive the invaders from their world. The battle raged across the planet. Alien forces pushed forward with overwhelming firepower, but the humans fought back with a desperation that made every alien victory feel like a temporary setback. The resistance struck back from every direction, out of hidden bunkers, from rooftops, and from behind broken walls. They fought with everything they had, with no thought of retreat. Every alien that fell was a small victory for humanity. Kratos, watching from his flagship, was finally beginning to feel the weight of his failure. His forces, though superior, could not overcome the unbreakable spirit of the humans. The battle had turned into a bloodbath, and the aliens were beginning to suffer heavy losses. Kratos had never imagined such fierce opposition. He had expected a quick and easy conquest, but what he had encountered was something entirely different, something he hadn't planned for, an enemy that would never stop fighting. The general's cold, calculating mind raced as he tried to make sense of the unfolding chaos. His fleet, once confident in its superiority, was now faltering. The humans, despite being outgunned and outnumbered, were holding their ground. For the first time in his career, Kratos questioned everything he had believed. The humans had something that no empire could conquer, an unbreakable will to survive. In the heart of the resistance, Eli and his group fought to the bitter end. The final showdown was brutal. Eli faced down Kratos' most elite soldiers, and despite the overwhelming odds, he never faltered. He knew that the survival of his people depended on this moment. With a final, desperate push, the humans managed to cripple the alien fleet. The once mighty invasion force began to fall apart, its soldiers scattered and disorganized. With the alien forces in retreat, the humans delivered one final blow, driving the invaders off their planet. The battle had been won, but at a great cost. The colony of Veridum was in ruins, its cities and landscapes scarred by the conflict. Yet, amid the destruction, the humans stood victorious. They had faced an empire and come out on top. They had shown the galaxy that no matter how powerful the invader, no matter how dire the situation, humanity would never give up. The final stand was not just a victory for Veridum. It was a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Kratos, left with a battered and defeated fleet, retreated into the vastness of space. Humiliated by his failure, he had learned a harsh lesson: never underestimate humanity. They would always fight, no matter the odds. As the dust settled, and the survivors of the human resistance looked to rebuild, one thing was clear: Veridum was their world, and they had proven that nothing, no force in the universe, could take it from them. Humanity had triumphed, not with overwhelming power, but with an unyielding will to survive. The aliens had been stunned, and the galaxy would never forget the story of how the humans fought like they had nothing to lose.